strategy and our favorite outfield targets on Underdog here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We're sponsored by Fantrax, the most customizable free commissioner service in fantasy sports, and Underdog Fantasy, home of the biggest best ball contests in the industry. Great to be back on this Friday with you, Todd. The spring games getting underway. Your Red Sox in action against Northeastern, so they're doing some damage, as you'd probably expect against the college team. And then in about an hour or so, we got Texas and Kansas City and Seattle and San Diego. So finally, there are baseball games being played here in the States again.
I have, there's a couple earlier. I've turned them off, so I'm not going to be distracted, but I had to turn them on just to make sure that my TV still was working. So,
Masataka Yoshida's first spring training RBI. So
woo!
Welcome stateside Masataka Yoshida.
Woo!
And that sound you hear is his price soaring. Not from just one spring training hit, but I do think he will.
You never know.
He will be getting costly in drafts as we get closer to opening day. I saw he was batting fifth this season, but do you think this exhibition game, don't want to read too much into that. Do you think there's a chance he's leading off Yoshida for this Red Sox?
That's what I've heard thus far. Kind of have to see. The Boston does have some moving parts, maybe not as many as they've had in the past, but I think it was just more maybe to get a look at some of the other guys. I don't know. But I do not see Yoshida hitting in the 5-hole come opening day.
Yeah, I'm with you. And tomorrow, the first full slate of spring training games. So I'm excited, man. We'll be seeing guys eased in. And of course, a lot of the starters get shuttled out early in these games, but still just good to have baseball back on the TV. And I'm excited to, there's baseball on pretty much every day except for the All-Star break now until November.
Yeah,
every day aside from the All-Star break.
Yeah, I didn't look at the schedule, but the past couple of years, the tendency has been to have day games just about every day, which is real nice for those of us that work at home and can work with a baseball game on in the background. I mean, I've enjoyed over the winter having Psych be on starting in January on my cable network from 2 to 4, 2 to 5. But I'm willing to put a baseball game on instead and catch the rerun for the 18th time, come the fall.
Absolutely, man. Well, we got some news coming in. I mean, nothing too earth-shattering, but we'll try to keep you updated on all the happenings in spring training. Yes, news coming across the wire. And, this isn't really news, but I just wanted to mention that, Hunter Brown appears to be heading to the opening day rotation. We all kind of assumed that with Lance McCullers hurt, but like with Masataka Yoshida, Hunter Brown's price from here is about to increase, to say the least. So I'm kind of wondering, Todd, if you at this tentative stage see yourself paying an increased price for Hunter Brown of the Astros.
I am ruining not having gotten Hunter. I think I did get him in a couple of Underdog, but I am regrowing. That's a combination of regret and ruining. I am ruining not getting Hunter Brown because I do like who doesn't like the pitcher? But you're right. The price now, there's always someone who wants that shiny new toy. And there was a bit of a dip early because of McCullers being healthy, and you could get him a little early, but that's gone. That's just gone.
Yes, Matt Leahy said in the chat, yesterday's price is not today's price. So
that's deep.
Yeah, that's the case for Hunter Brown. That is deep. That's the case for Hunter Brown and really everybody. So that's the market's constantly shifting. The target is constantly moving, but we'll do our best to keep you updated on the rising values and shifts in the market. Since we were talking about Brown, I wanted to mention too that Yordan Alvarez, his teammate, not doing any on-field drills with the Astros right now. So he got that left hand. He had issues with both hands last year. Is this nothing or something for you, Todd, with Yordan Alvarez?
This is a lot. I mean, this is very concerning for me.
Really?
Yeah, he had both hands issued last year. It's back, and it just hasn't played yet. You know, the knees. You know, I mean, he had the surgery. We're hoping everything's okay there. But the point being, the cost of acquisition of Yordan Alvarez is, you know, first rounder $30, $35, $40. It's huge. So I don't, and the fact that he had both, he had hand surgery and everything. We don't know, and it's recurred so quickly. I think you have to be concerned. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit of underdog and outfield play, and he's a guy that I profiled him. I think it was from my site, from Masters Ball. And I was so excited that I joined an underdog draft right away so I could try to get the 4th or 5th spot and draft him. Mm-hmm. Actually, I got the 5th spot and I was psyched, but he ended up going 4th. I get him, I didn't do another draft right away, but I do have him. But now, I mean, it's a bit of a risk. And yeah, I mean, it's got to be concerning. And maybe there's a doctor would out there be able to say, no, don't worry about it. But how can you not be when he had injuries to both hands last year, soreness, and it's back again?
It is a little strange. Old man knees and old man hands, I guess, on Yordan Alvarez too. Just a little strange, but I guess you do have to. I don't know. Well, I'm not lowering him. Like our next roundtable is coming out. Yeah. I'm not going to lower him this update, but it's something I'm definitely keeping in the back of my mind.
The optimistic glass half full part is, even with the issues last year, he's still raked.
Yeah, and in those best ball, when he has a monster week, forget about it.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that he's still crushed to me, it was more of, imagine how good he's going to be without the hand soreness, more than anything else. So yeah, I'm with you. The roundtable rankings could very well come out as we're on air, but I didn't touch him. I think other guys around him went up and down, so I don't remember if he moved or not, but I didn't touch him.
Now, over in Atlanta, Ozzie Albies revealed today that
how about that?
That he had, quote, a regular cleanup on his shoulder. So an arthroscopic procedure, going to be DHing early on. Doesn't sound like he's really in danger of missing opening day, but now we know he's coming off a procedure. He's really hasn't hit for much. Well, he hit for power in 2021, so that was just really last year that the average and the power cratered. Really tough guy for me to value. I was just talking about that with James Anderson on the XM show. Really tough guy for me to rank right now, just because I don't know really what level he's at and what you're getting with Albies. Are you willing to take that shot, or do you see other second basemen you like at cost better?
I think that's the key, is at cost. There are still people pushing second baseman up because of it's a quantity, not quality position. I don't feel you need to push up an Albies to get the best player at second base. I'd rather get a good shortstop, a good third baseman, and I will settle for a decent second baseman later, because the inventory is just huge. As you know, there's just a ton of second base eligible. So that's my approach. I like Jose Altuve more than Albies. So if I want in the latest rankings, I'm going to have him higher than Albies. I think I had Albies higher previously. It doesn't matter a ton, but depending on where he hits in that Albies, where he hits in the Braves order is going to matter. Michael Harris is now a factor. I could see the two of them platooning in the 2-hole, depending lefty or righty, and then the other one hitting a little bit lower. It's a good thing for the Braves. They've got so much flexibility. They could pick a name out of a hat at 1 through 5 and still crush it.
I'm going to tell you this right now. I do not think I'm going to have Ozzie Albies on a single team.
Okay.
I just don't see it this year.
I don't think I'm going to either. I don't think I'm going to either.
And it's really,
sorry,
go ahead.
I like watching the Braves. I enjoy watching them play, but I think there's still a residual stud element to his game that I don't think we need to pay for.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's mostly, well, it's uncertainty about health and performance, but also where he's going. I need to attack starters, closers, catchers. There's too many comparable players to Albies.
Yeah.
And I'm addressing other needs where he's going in draft.
Well,
you can't get everything you want, right? In a 15 especially, you can't get everything you want. And so I'm going to try to get more of what I want. Where Ozzie Albies is going, I feel like I could get Jorge Polanco, Brandon Lau, somebody like this much later.
Yeah, exactly.
You like Brandon Lau this year? Because I'm kind of back on him now. So
I do, not as much as our colleague and partner Eric Halterman.
Is Halterman big on him?
Yeah, and so much so that I've actually grabbed him at a couple of underdogs just because Eric, all right, whatever. And you mentioned Carrasco a couple weeks ago. Carlos Carrasco, so I took Carrasco as my last pitcher in a couple of underdogs too. So if I win, I'm gonna have to share the wealth a bit with these people who are giving me my 16th, 17th, and 18th picks.
Well, you know what? You gave me one, and after you had one that I ended up taking in a couple subsequent. One of your pitching flyers from last week. I forget. Oh, it might have been Trevor Rogers. That's who it was.
Okay.
He was one of your last.
We haven't done infielders yet, but Jake Cronenworth is the complete bargain.
It's either your big bargain on the board.
He's just the bar. Yes, it's silly. But anyway.
Nice. Well, yeah, I wanted to mention that about Albies because, well, it's arthroscopic and it doesn't seem like his availability for opening day will be affected. It's just adds another layer of uncertainty for Albies for me. And elsewhere in that, well, not elsewhere in that division. He used to be in that division. Now with the Texas Rangers.
You know what else it does? And maybe we're getting a little granular here. I don't know. But for the pitching, I sure would like Grissom and Albies to work together, up the middle, as a double play combination, or even just because of the shift rules. It's not so much double play combination, but just working in tandem where they're each going to be settled as far as where they're going to be playing within legally put within the shift rules. And I think that Grissom's going to be the shortstop. And I know there's some question about that still, but I'd like to get the two of them together on the field at the same time. And it sounds like that's going to be delayed a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, before you made that good point, I had a sloppy transition to Jacob deGrom. I was trying to get to deGrom here, and he had a bullpen session, which is good, but apparently low-intensity fastballs. So just fastballs, apparently, and relatively low velocity. Called it a small step, but a step in the right direction.
I'm laughing because can you imagine? I'm trying to imagine myself in the box against a low-velocity Jacob deGrom fastball. I'd be like the kid in the kid in what was it with the arm Rowan Gardner,
rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year. I mean the bat my gut would still be hanging out over the plate, but I would be in the back corner of the box against a low impact Jacob deGrom fastball.
It'd be like Barry Bonds in that movie Whiffin, but it'd be against deGrom's low intensity fastball.
Yeah, this is it's 95. It's low. It's 5 miles an hour slower than normal.
Yeah, it's.
Oh man,
I would love to see what a low intensity deGrom is like. And when he was rehabbing in like Jupiter, those youngsters got to see it.
Yep,
I think he was dialing up like 99 right away.
Ooh, yeah.
But it's getting to the point. It's still only February 24th, but it's starting to get to the point where I think he's not on the mound and only throwing low intensity. I think you got to start wondering if he's available for opening day.
Yeah, but if you were willing to draft him, if you just figure he's going to give you 120 innings sometime between now and in November, I think he'll get his 120. I don't know when they'll be, but I think he'll get them. So I'm not as concerned. But if you are one of those people that feel you need Jacob deGrom to win, and there's evidence, right? If I keep saying, if he throws 150 innings, he's a first rounder. If he throws 170, 180, he's the best player in fantasy. So, when you get them for 120, you're not going to get them because someone in the room is going to take the chance.
Yep, and as we've talked about, that's just you and I both feel that's not a chance you have to take. There's so many ways to win, and I just want to make par with those early picks. Real quick, let's pause. I will bring you a quick word from our sponsor, Underdog. The fantasy baseball season is underway, and there's no better place to play than Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy baseball. Right now, Underdog has MLB Best Ball tournaments live, including the Dinger, which has $500,000 in total prizes. In Best Ball, all you do is join a contest, draft your team, and that's it. There are no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Draft 20 rounds of players and get the best cumulative scores in your starting lineup. 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, and 1 flex each week of the regular season. Getting started is simple. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com, sign up with the promo code RWMLB, and not only will Underdog double your initial deposit up to $100, but you also get 6 months of our RotoWire subscription for free. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code RWMLB. Draft your $100,000 Dinger team today. Well, Todd already drafted the $100,000 Dinger team, but you can draft the second place team.
Well, I've drafted the top 5. You kidding?
Well, yeah, you've drafted and spent the money.
So. We shall see. We shall see.
Oh, man. I love that format, man. Yeah, I'm getting so addicted to it.
I have not quite, I haven't ordered the Lamborghini yet, but I am looking at colors.
Nice. Well, we're going to be talking Underdog a little bit later in our top outfield targets. Really fun format. I'm having a blast with it. And I think I'm actually going to take some lessons learned from my Underdog drafts into my traditional roto drafts, actually. And I'll talk a little bit about that with our outfield strategy talk a little bit later. But some other news, Starling Marte, who had surgery on both groins, by the way, took his first live BP of the spring Thursday. He also had a finger issue last year. He sounded like he was just going through hell at the end of last season, trying to play through all his injuries. And now he's seemingly healthy. First live BP, as I mentioned yesterday. Really tough guy for me to pinpoint right now, but an Underdog in Roto, I think I'm going to be buying this discounted price on Starling Marte.
Just be conservative with the number of steals. He's going to be 34, I believe. The Mets did not run a ton, but again, you don't pick up a Starling Marte or pay a Starling Marte and then plant his butt on the base and or the bench. Mm-hmm. So I think he'll run if he can, but he is 34. So I think that I know what I've been saying a lot lately is don't count his steals. I mean, count them as a luxury, not like this is what I need, but he's kind of in between. So what I would do is be conservative and figure, okay, 2025. And if he happens to get more, excuse me, that's the luxury, right? I don't, if you're looking at your team, I have, these are my stolen base guys. Someone like, to me, Estury Ruiz, you're counting those as a luxury. There's a lot of risk involved, but man, he could also steal 75 if things, and I'm not exaggerating if he could. Who was it?
Yeah, you're driving the Estury Ruiz train right now.
Yeah, who was it that said
I might jump on board.
Well, we could talk about him too. Was it Jorge Mateo says put 50 in the book? Yeah. So, I mean, I would put 20 or 25 in the book for Marte, even though he's capable of 40, even at 34 years old.
And we talked in one of these recent weeks about his success rate plummeting, but I'm kind of willing to give him a little bit of a pass there, given the groin issues and everything else going on. And with the bigger bases, the throwover rules, I think he'll return to close to 30 bags.
Right. So. But I think in your head, you're going to say, okay, there's 20 and then, have 10 putting one, icing on the cake, as opposed to, all right, I have 30 towards my 140 that I want. I think you have to be a little conservative there.
Well, let's talk a little Estury Ruiz of the A's. He really does. He feels a lot like this year's Jorge Mateo. Like, it feels like Jorge Mateo was in this exact spot last year where opportunity, speed, and that's really the only two things that seem to be pluses in his favor, but speed is such a big part of the game. Not a total nothing as a prospect either, but if you take a shot on him, you're really going chasing after the speed. Is that a worthwhile gamble in a traditional mixed league? Estury Ruiz.
So here's the difference between Mateo and Ruiz: 474, 457, and 402. Those were Ruiz's OBPs last year. Wow. As he first in AA and then AAA. Then he got traded, so this also in AAA. But and it was just that 1 year. The previous year in AA was 325, then 300, 324. So last year, his both batting average and OBP just really spiked. So I guess when one does a MLE translation, it's really going to depend on how much force impetus that you put on last year versus previous years is where you're going to land with the OBP. Mm-hmm. Most, Marcel's, most systems, have last year around 50% of the total. And you're just going to have his OBP through the roof. And then you mentioned Rob Silva earlier. This is one of Rob's things where you have to look at a projection as kind of in a practical point of view, that if, look at the projection, look at the slash line, and look at the playing time. Do they match in that if he performs at that level, then the player is going to get more playing time than the system says, and sometimes vice versa. Sometimes you see a player with a bunch of playing time, but there's no way he plays that much if he produces at that level. So my point being, if Ruiz, and last year Ruiz, it was only 35 at bats, a 194 OBP. So in a month, if not even that, in a week for some people, he just didn't get on. So it's where that OBP is, because he's gonna run about half the time that second base is open and he was on. I mentioned I read the three OBPs, 37, 23, and 25. He stole. That's almost 100. Last year he stole 85 bases.
And 185.
85 bases and only caught 14 times in 114 games, 540 plate appearances. So this is where the translations just go through the roof.
Those are really encouraging on base numbers. You're right.
Yeah. So this is why. Yeah, but it was 1 year. Was it? Is it sustainable? What was it? Something he figured out? Now pitchers are going to attack him, and flip the script again. But the upside here is just huge. So I want some of Estury Ruiz, just because it's not just dreaming. The numbers are it was through the roof, but you can't say for the past 4 years he's gotten on base 40% of the time. It's for 5 months of in minor leagues, but he's 22 and 23 years old. So the age versus level is kind of right on target. Maybe not so much for the AA, but for the triple, 23-year-olds in AAA is fine. So I want to be a year too early for Ruiz. I don't want to be a year too late. So if you can get him at a point where I'm set, in a 15-team mixed league, where I'm set and I kind of like what I have, do I take Marcana? Do I take some boring, it's going to be nice, but I can wait 3 rounds and get someone similar outfielder? Or do I take Ruiz anyway, win me the league? I don't need his steals, but add on what I have and add on 50 or add on 40, and now suddenly I win the league. That's kind of where I'm at with Ruiz.
Interesting points. I typically don't like this type of player where it's kind of like, oh, these are my magic solution to make up everything in the stolen base department, kind of like Mondesi was last year. It rarely works out, but these on-base skills that you mentioned, I don't want to completely write off Estury Ruiz as like a one-trick pony, because that may not necessarily be what he is.
Well, with the difference with Mondesi and Miles Straw, for instance, you're going to get those 40 steals. I only need 80 more. My approach is I've got 110, 120. I don't need Ruiz, but good Lord, what if I add those on? Then I aim for the middle of the pack and see what happens. Now suddenly you're at the top, and now things like. And as far as the other numbers go, he had 15 homers, 16 homers. Math is hard. He had 16 homers along with those 85 homers. 3 different levels. I know, minor leagues, etc. But he's not a Miles Straw in that the only home run he's going to get is an inside the Parker.
Yeah, doesn't seem like he seems like he's got a little thump. I don't know how much, and again, these guys who kind of seem like, they're the magic solution. They're the one guy who's going to tie the whole team together. It just rarely works out that way. So
which is why I'm saying luxury, not foundation.
Yeah, if you already have the foundation, you're adding to it, sure. But if you're looking at him as like a makeup play, I don't know if it's going to work out very well.
If it turns out that he becomes the fancy makeup play, he's going to get priced out of my range pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's true. His price, I do expect to jump considerably.
But I mean, I think, who was it? Was it Ruiz or somebody else? Maybe it was, we talked a little bit ago with James on XXM. I think it was Ruiz. I'm doing AL labor. I can't say that I'm going to leave the room with him, but if I don't have the last bid, I probably will have the second to last.
Yeah, I think you or James are going to be taking him home.
Well, I think James just teasing that he was going to price him up. Or maybe James likes him.
I think James kind of likes him.
I was going to say, if there's only a way I could find out how much James likes him.
There might be a way. Over in New York, Aaron Boone made some comments where he kind of left open the door for maybe Clay Holmes pitches some outside the ninth, but he said that he expected Clay Holmes to get to close most of the games for New York. So that's some encouraging quotes overall from Boone in regards to Clay Holmes' value. And since we're on the topic of the Yankees, just talking with James about this guy, and our own Scott Jenstead was just pumping him recently. Oswald Peraza.
Yep.
If we assume this, but more confirmation that he is on the inside track to start at shortstop. Maybe people see IKF, think he'll still be a big part of the mix. Anthony Volpe. But man, Oswald Peraza's a heck of a prospect. James has him number 2 in the organization. Had a lot of success right away. It was only 57 plate appearances, but can run a little bit. And man, it just seems like a great fit for a player on the rise and seems to be going way too low right now. Would you agree with that as a general assessment on Oswald Peraza?
Absolutely. I'm trying to find the tweet, and this is a little while ago. I don't know that I'm going to be able to find the tweet that quickly. But yeah, that's exactly. I mean, when I profiled him for either us or ESPN or our own site, I was very high on him. I was like, whoa, I opened my eyes. And I think I said something like, now I can see why the Yankees weren't going to overpay for Carlos Correa or one of those guys. And it was probably in a mock or two, but I do like what I am seeing. James has seen him and scouted him. Me, it's more of a number scouting. And it's kind of nice that my number scouting matches what these people might have actually have seen. But yes, a lot of pressure for a kid to play shortstop for the Yankees, but I absolutely like what I saw.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that, we see a lot of these guys in big markets, especially New York. It feels like a lot of those players are usually taxed up because, hey, Yankees fans, they want to draft their players and have fun. You should always strive to have fun in fantasy. But yeah, he doesn't seem to be getting that tax for whatever reason. I think IKF is pretty much, just on the back burners. He appeared in 142 games last year, but I'd be shocked if he came close to that. I'd be shocked if he cleared 500 plate appearances again. So I actually picked Oswald Peraza in a few of those underdog best balls. You grab him?
No, I do not, because the problem being it might not happen. So, and you just can't, there's no replacing these players. You only get 20. So, and you get 7 or 8 infielders or 6 or 8 infielders. So I figure I'm going to get him in enough other places where I can replace him if it doesn't work out, so that I'm not going to have FOMO. I'm gonna get Peraza somewhere.
Well, Cody Bellinger, now with the Cubs, he's already tinkering with his stance in camp. I mean, that's a bad sign if you ask me. A guy who, has really been trying to figure it out for years and still trying to tinker. I kind of like Bellinger just as like a fan. He seems kind of like funny and cool, but man, it's been a steep decline for him. And the fact that he's already, I don't want to put too much stock into it, but the fact that he's already kind of trying to tinker maybe lead me to drop him just a few spots, because I just want to have him in a place where I don't really ever have to consider him, Cody Bellinger.
He's been tinkering, which is part of the issue. Mm-hmm. I think the hope was the Cubs would, maybe he's tinkering to what the Cubs are saying to do, and that's just what they're calling it. I don't know. But yeah, no, his fall from 2019, I don't know that I've seen anything like it. And man, just looked into him a little bit too for the rankings and otherwise, because I had him as a top 60 outfielder. I'm like, would I really draft him? I guess top 60 though could mean an SP4 in a 15-team league, and I think I wouldn't mind him as an SP4. But I think I may have had him in the
OF4.
Yeah, an OF4. Sorry, yep, an OF4. So I think I may have been trying to justify top 50 and not top 60. I know it doesn't seem like much, but I think you have to be careful. Wow, I don't know that I have FOMO with Bellinger but it's there. He's done it in but baseball HQ. Once you own a skill, it's yours. But I think we don't say once you own lack of a skill, you own that too. Mm-hmm. And he owns both. So where's he going to be?
Yeah, he's a really tough guy to peg for me for 2023. And maybe he finds it. I don't think it's going to be on my watch, though, Cody Bellinger. And this whole Cubs team is just kind of strange. They brought in Dansby, they brought in Trey Mancini, but it seems just kind of like a hodgepodge holdover type of roster as they rebuild this farm system. I really am not ending up with hardly any of these guys. Maybe Ian Happ, maybe Dansby, but even Dansby I find the cost to be a little prohibitive myself. So not a team I'm expecting to be watching or heavily invested in this season, the Chicago Cubs. I think that's probably the wise move. Kyle Wright's nursing a shoulder issue. I asked James this, and I'll throw it by Utah. Do you think Kyle Wright's going to go the way of Ian Anderson and kind of be a flash in the pan? Or do you think when he gets healthy that Kyle Wright's going to return to being a quality option both for Atlanta and for fantasy managers?
Well, I don't know what James said. I heard some of the show. I didn't happen to hear that particular answer. But I'm going to assume with something along the lines of let's not write off Anderson just yet. But that's not really the point of your question. Anderson is all about the control, just went goofy. Mm-hmm. I think Wright's baseline control over the course of his career has, I don't know, I can't even say that because it kind of, last year it did kind of, yeah. So maybe, all right, that is a good comparison because the question is, will Wright's control continue to be below average, whereas in previous, at least in his major league time, he had trouble finding the plate. I know it was very, very, very limited appearances. I think it's a different kind of, he's not just a fireballer, which Anderson to me, can you control the fastball? I think it's just overall more the pitch selection. I think I'm less concerned about Wright as far as just suddenly losing it than I was about Anderson. But who was kind of like Atlanta had a pitcher the year before, and it will come to me.
Yeah. Oscar Inoue. Yeah, good call.
They kind of come out of nowhere, and then they're not quite as good. And I think we could say a little bit of the same with it's a different team, but Trevor Rogers, the guys that have such huge leaps or don't have the track record you have to be wary of. But so I am worried about Wright. This injury, I think hopefully this injury was just a jumping off point to talk about Wright, and we don't have to worry as much about the injury anymore. But Wright was not a pitcher that I have found my gravitating towards, and I haven't done as many drafted, about to do TGFBI and some other things. I don't want to use the word target, but I don't expect to see Wright on a lot of my rosters.
Me neither. And it's kind of an example of the fantasy community being too smart nowadays. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a guy who won 21 games, he led the majors in wins, probably getting a lot of love. But it seems like everybody's looking at those underlying numbers. Everybody's baking in that heavy dose of regression, and now the shoulder on top of it, and everybody's scared off. And I'm one of them. I hate to be in the group think, but I was kind of not entirely buying his season last year to begin with, and now this,
right.
Just all the more reason to be off.
Yep.
And finally, at least for recent news, no restrictions for Tyler Mahle in Minnesota. Do you think, like with Luis Castillo, that maybe his past time with the Reds is just kind of weighing him down arbitrarily? He's not with the Reds anymore, folks. Tyler Mahle doesn't have to play uphill constantly. Are those down years with Cincinnati and all those tough starts in Great American Ballpark dragging Tyler Mahle down more than he should?
I think so. I know the schedule isn't quite as favorable because you only get to play KC and Detroit 13 times and not 19 times. But there's plenty of opportunity still to use a Tyler Mahle if he can stay healthy. He misses bats, issues are home runs, and so the Indians are the Guardians are a good lineup. I need some shock therapy for every time I say Indians. The Guardians are a good lineup, so even though they're going to score some runs, they don't have the home run oomph that you worry about for Tyler Mahle. So I absolutely am. I don't think we're talking about. We've already talked about pitchers. I don't remember if Mahle came up with Underdog, but I've got 4 or 5, aces when I'm looking to fill out my staff with a guy that can pop any particular week. Tyler Mahle is on my 6th and 7th starting pitcher spot in Underdog.
Awesome. Well, we'll pause briefly, and it'll be very brief for you listening live to the show. But we'll pause for a quick word from our Blue Wire sponsors. And we're back on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast. Clay Link here with FSWA Hall of Famer Todd Zola. Todd, looking forward to seeing you in New York next month for Tout Wars. Should be a great time. And, good luck in labor. I won't be there for First Pitch Florida, but a lot of RotoWire guys in those labor league only drafts, and wish the best to you and Colette and James as well, even though you'll all be at each other's throats trying to beat each other. But I'll be watching from afar, and should be a really fun season. Before we get into our Underdog outfield targets, I wanted to talk a little bit about outfield strategy for this year, Todd. I've been thinking about things and doing these Underdog drafts. I kind of alluded to this. I think I want to take my lessons learned about the outfield from Underdog and kind of translate them over to standard roto with 5 outfielders. Now, I'm not saying I want to go 5 outfielders to start my draft, but I'm more open to going maybe 3 in the first 5 rounds or something like this. And actually, the year I won TGFBI, always be the first, Todd. Kind of like Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Smaller field back in when he won the Royal Rumble. But there'll always be a first. And but when I did that, I took 3 outfielders to start. I took Giancarlo Stanton, JD Martinez, Christian Yelich. Outfield gets so hairy. And I know there's other scarce positions, but doing these Underdog drafts has really made me realize just how bad the back of the outfield pool is. Do you agree that it's overall the back half of the outfield pool is pretty ugly?
I agree. We may have different ways to get there, but I agree. Underdog, I mean, real quick, you need 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, and included within the infielders are catchers. Now, I know they're not all quality, Underdog quality, but you've got 4.5 positions, we'll call it, versus 3. And so just by sheer numbers, outfield is going to not be as plentiful because it's just not as many. And in the outfield, you get more platooning than you do in the infield. So the underdog just by nature thins out faster. Now, but I think whether it's coincidentally or not, what we're also finding when we're doing our draft and holds is that outfield thins. I can wait on outfield. Ooh, my 4th and 5th outfielder. I'm looking at some pretty ugly. I'm looking at some pretty ugly guys here. I didn't really expect to be thinking between Michael Taylor and Austin Slater is my 4th outfielder. I expected to have better choices. Those are my reserves. So I do agree that, again, you're not going to get everybody, but you do, because you're going to be trawling for some outfielders. And I agree with Uncle Ted about Brian De La Cruz, that he's someone to consider, 3rd, 4th, and 5th outfielder from Miami. That Uncle Ted's on the chat for those of us who what Zola talking about on our StreamYard chat. When you get to actually look at our beautiful countenances, I with you. Ty. I want a good shortstop. I want a good third baseman. But if I'm looking at outfielder and a second base, it's the outfielder every day. It's the outfielder every time. And
so many platoon outfielders too.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I will say is, and it's usually this way, and who's to say if it's this way again this year, but because historically it has been, in a fab league where you can make replacements, TGFBI, NFBC, main event, online championship, etc. There are usually more outfield replacements available, in part because of the platoon. Once you get deeper into the season with injuries, whereas you don't want to draft a platoon guy because he's not getting as many at bats, these guys become your better replacements because they're better than, they're getting more at bats than the infielders or whatever that are available. So in a league where you can replace players, I'm a little bit less worried about my back end outfield because I feel you can't get your closer and your 5th starter and every on fab. You have to if you're gonna your big fab acquisitions. But I feel while others are chasing some of these other positions, you can sneak in and upgrade your outfield in a mixed league. So in TGFBI, I'm more amenable to, my 5th outfield is not all that great, but it's going to be in a month. It's going to be someone completely different.
I hear you, man. I've mentioned in the past that I want to prioritize catcher a little bit more this year, and you can't get everything you want again.
Yeah,
but I want to.
I
really want to load up on the top outfielders.
I need to, complain now. I'm singing that Rolling Stone song to myself all day now because of you. You can't always get what you want. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's worse.
It's an important thing to keep in mind for fantasy because
what Zola's singing, that's important.
Everybody wants to come out of a draft feeling great, every spot covered, all their bases covered, but 15-team mixed draft, mixed auction, you're going to have some spots. And Scott Pianowski said, you're probably going to hate your team, and that's probably a good thing in a 15-teamer if you come out of it not really feeling
isn't it
great.
What's weird is in a 12-teamer, you usually do feel pretty good. Mm-hmm. And you look at the other 11 teams, you go, wow, that's a good team too. That only 3 teams. That's where the cliff insanity is. That's where it falls so quickly. You're right that you kind of have to go into a 15-team draft with a plan on how to not draft something early but make up for it later, so that it's still strong. Once in a while, it's just the way things fell, your draft spot, the way the wind's blowing. Once in a while, things just fall into place, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you're going to win with that team. But if I draft 10 teams, a couple of draft champions and TGFBI, whatever, there's always that one team that whoa, I love this one. For me, it's usually a mock. But my MO is I do my best in leagues that don't pay the most money. But anyway.
Well, I'm glad we touched on that because I wanted to at least mention that, my eyes have kind of been open through these underdog drafts as to just how shallow outfield really is, especially when you have to start 5 of them.
Yep.
I think we all kind of think of, catcher, third base. Outfield is real thin, actually.
And this is why I think it's a Will Myers, okay? You draft him as your corner. But if you need, you can put him on the outfield. Things like I think you try to get yourself. I mean, Hunter Dozier depends if you believe he's going to. There's look at some first base outfield, and try to put them in the middle, knowing that if you don't find that outfielder later, you're going to get that corner. You're going to get Rowdy Tellez or whoever it might be, and then move. Shift Myers to the outfield. We don't outfield first base. We don't think kind of wave that off as dual eligibility. I think it's really important. Really important this year.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. And I just wanted to, before we got into the specific outfielders we're targeting, I wanted to mention just how I'm kind of using my experience on Underdog.
No, makes sense.
Yeah, using that strategy and carrying it over to traditional leagues because it has dawned on me just how ugly it gets. But now let's get into our official Underdog segment of the week. Use promo code RWMLB. Not only will Underdog double your initial deposit up to $100, but you also get 6 months of our RotoWire subscription for free. Todd, today's main subject of conversation in regards to best ball, top outfield targets. Of course, we all want to grab one of those top dogs at the very top of the board if we can. But as we're making our way down, trying to get to the magic number of 6 outfielders, who are we grabbing in our drafts? And my number 1 is Brandon Nimmo. Not always the biggest Nimmo guy in traditional 5x5 roto because he doesn't stand out with the power, doesn't stand out much with the speed, but he's got the perfect skill set for a points league like this. I'm kind of surprised at how reasonable he is. Most outfield prices on Underdog are through the roof, but it always feels like Nimmo's price is right for me.
My concern with Nimmo, and this is the concern in any format, is last year he shed the injury bug. Is he done? Is he now not injury prone? Because again, in Underdog, you can't replace him. So it's just if he happens to be out during the playoffs, because you have to keep in mind it's a cut line type format. That's my only issue. I'm trying to see around that range who I'm getting for outfield. I don't see anybody in the outfield that I'm kind of picking in that range of Nimmo. I have actually picked up Christian Yelich a couple of times in that range. I've got some other guys that I know I'm getting, but I'm looking around the ADP in the mid 50s. I was all over Corbin Carroll early, but I kind of felt as if I can't have Corbin Carroll on every team, so I need to back off of Corbin Carroll. But a few rounds later, and I'm playing chicken with my room with Anthony Santander. He's the guy that when I have my 2 outfielders early and I want my third, it's usually Santander. And his ADP is around 85. I have him ranked in the 60s. So it's like, is he gonna make to me that round in between where I have him where I have him ranked in 85 is what? That's the 7th or 8th round. So do I take him in the 6th where I have him ranked, or do I try to get him in the 7th around before his ADP? So I'm always playing chicken with Santander.
Yeah, Anthony Santander was on my list as well. Really good outfield pick, I think, if you can get him. That's when it really gets into the weeds where, I mean, he's like the last, him and JD Martinez, who's on my list, kind of the last good outfield options, I feel like. JD's on there. UT only, of course, in traditional fantasy leagues this year, but JD does get lumped in with the outfielders on Underdog, and kind of chasing the narrative a little bit on this, but I love that he's back reunited with his old hitting coach that kind of fueled the breakout. LA always seems to get the most out of their guys. They have great training and development staffs. So, JDE at cost is just, a must for me right now in Underdog. I'm loving JD Martinez.
Yeah, I am as well. And I think Dodger Stadium is actually better for his power because right center field power is easier reach in Chavez Ravine than it is in Fenway with the deep right field or deep right center field. A guy I like, you mentioned before, it's kind of in this range, is Ian Happ. I am not into 4 or 5 man stacks in this format, but I do like trying to pair specifically an infielder and an outfielder. And you also mentioned Dansby Swanson. I like him at his price. So I've got a lot of squads. And we keep saying a lot of squads. For those that aren't aware, Underdog is designed for you to have a lot of squads. So it's not something that, you guys play so many leagues, of course you're going to have, Underdog is designed to have multiple teams. So it's not, I don't feel quite as cheap talking about all my Underdog teams because that's the format, $10 a pop, trying to win 100,000. That's the plan. Anyway, so I do like Hap. Going to get the playing time, and just as he about to tease a breakout, he get hurt. I think this is the year that he kind of stays healthy, and we see that breakout. He could run a little bit too. Smart player that could benefit by the changes.
We got some good answers or responses in the chat as well. Stephen Kwan, Oscar Gonzalez of the Guardians getting a fair amount of love in the chat. I didn't include him on my list, but I have considered him. The strikeouts, though, take away a little bit from him, ding him in my eyes a little bit in this points format. A lot of swing and miss for Oscar Gonzalez. Next on my list is Andrew McCutchen.
Yeah.
That's at the point where, and I don't love to do it, I kind of have to hold my nose, but you get 20 roster spots in total, and I do like to do the 7-7-6, and getting the 6 outfielders is tough. But I think when it gets to that point, McCutchen makes a lot of sense because bad team, bad park to hit in, but I think by himself he could drive in like 60. So maybe he gets up to like 75 RBI.
Yeah, so I'm going to, a little bit before McCutchen for me is Riley Green. And I just kind of see a breakout. So I think he's just being downgraded a little bit. He wasn't great he was hurt last year. I do see a bit of a breakout in general. Maybe we can talk about him more in a general case. But right next to McCutchen in ADP is Austin Hayes. And even though I mentioned that I like an infield and an outfield for my stack, if I end up with McCutchen and if I end up with Santander and Hayes, I don't sweat it. I don't expect them both to be in my lineup every week, but that week that the Orioles, they pop, they're facing some weak pitching or et cetera. That's what you kind of want. So I am not at all against Austin Hayes. I know he's not an outfielder, but Ryan Mountcastle is someone I'm often able to pick up once I'm past my 3 infielders. And I get my infield outfield stack.
Nice. Yeah, I got to admit, Austin Hayes has been a little bit of a blind spot for me. I haven't really ever considered him this draft season. But he is very – what's that?
He's a boring compiler.
Yeah, he is very much boring, but I should probably give him another look, and Riley Green, who didn't really do much at all last year, but
you know what?
Really hyped as a prospect, and last year.
He didn't – it's hard to explain. I mean, not that hard. It's not hard to explain. It's easy to explain. He hit for batting average, at least within realm of a rookie. He didn't run. He didn't get homers. So I think that it's just growing pains, if you will. I think those will come. He wasn't overmatched. He didn't strike out a ton. He hit like 256 or something, which isn't horrible at all. Part of it's the expectations were so high. He was being, he got hurt early, so out of rookie of the year contention. But he was the Twins. The Tigers are going to have a chance for an extra draft pick because of Riley Green. That kind of went away quickly. But I think that sometimes we forget how we felt about a player a year later based on what they did. And sometimes the best pre-draft preparation is to look back at the previous year's ADP to remind ourselves what we thought of these players, because one year might not be enough to change our opinions as much as we are. And I think that's the case with Green.
Nice. And my last pick for top outfield targets, Jarred Kelenic. Now, bear with me. I know I was wrong previously, but look, Kelenic's still young, still highly touted. And Rob Silver made a good point on this pod recently with James Anderson that for as bad as he's also been historically unlucky in terms of balls in play. So that's not all, bad luck necessarily, but he's really had a tough time on balls in play. So maybe partially bad luck mixed with bad results and bad skills. But even when I prioritize outfielders early, I'm finding myself an underdog struggling to get to 6. So I've been popping up Jarred Kelenic ahead of ADP, well ahead of ADP in recent drafts. And he's kind of my last outfielder target, and we'll see. But when it gets to that point, there are very few outfielders that have any appeal.
Right. I'm going 6-7-7. I was doing 7 pitchers, but Chris Baseball on Twitter I talked with him on a RotoWire podcast and convinced me to go 6 pitchers and 7-7. So I'm reaching for the last outfielder often, and sometimes it's Kyle Stowers to get another in a Baltimore stack. But a guy that I am, for the talk, and I know we want to cut it short or cut it off. Call me a homer if you want. I don't care. But Adam Duvall, is there a player built for Fenway? And I know he hit 3 home runs in a game, blah, blah, blah. I know whatever. But if he can stay healthy and play enough defense in center field, a right-handed fly ball hitter in Fenway Park. If I get Tristan Casas earlier, then I've got my infield, outfield potential double hit there. Adam Duvall is the outfielder that I'm getting, for my 7th outfielder often.
Nice. Well, that'll do it for our Underdog Best Ball segment, our outfield targets. Good luck if you're on there. You'll get caught up in the outfielder madness in a hurry, and you'll learn like I have that you need to prioritize that position, especially in Underdog. So again, my outfield targets were Brandon Nimmo, Anthony Santander, JD Martinez, Andrew McCutchen, Jarred Kelenic, and then yours were Anthony Santander, Ian Happ, Riley Green, Austin Hayes, and Adam Duvall. We had some Oscar Colas love in the chat. Just wanted to mention that.
They were talking more in general, not necessarily for Underdog.
Yeah. That'd be a stretch in Underdog.
Yeah, because of the playing time, and we're just not sure about it. But I mean, he's another guy whose translations are really, really good. Mm-hmm. And will if the playing time is limited, but if he meets the translations, he's going to play more.
Nice. Well, real quick, one last note, if you'll bear with me, then we'll wrap things up on today's show. Fantrax, the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry. Plus, if you're like me and you are, a big Vladdy fan, you can sign up for free today and be entered to win an official MLB signed Vladimir Guerrero Jr. jersey. You can simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's FANTrax.com/RotoWire. If you have a dynasty league, keeper, redraft, best ball leagues, if you're coming from another service, Fantrax makes it super easy. I know a lot of leagues are customizable. They're not standard 5x5. They're leagues that have been going on and on for years and may have unique rule sets that you want to keep in place as you transfer to a new commission service. And guys, Fantrax will accommodate your needs, and they'll make it easy to import and really easy to transition from your current commission service to Fantrax. Offers the most customizable fantasy commission service on any platform. Waivers, categories, scoring system, schedule. Fantrax offers custom solutions for all that and more. And the best part, it's all free. Again, FANTRAX.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. We, of course, appreciate their sponsorship of the show. We appreciate everybody in the chat with us today and everybody listening on their traditional podcast platforms. Todd, we have an update to the RotoWire Roundtable rankings coming. They're in the works. I've submitted mine. One guy I bumped up after, there's some news that his first bullpen states I didn't go so well, but Kodai Senga seemed to kind of turn the Mets' worries or eliminate those pretty quickly with his live BP session, making some of their hitters look pretty foolish with that ghost ball. Don't really know exactly what that is, but apparently he hides it pretty well. And now I kind of flipped, and the fact that he's able to have success and really kind of wow people with that live BP session, I'm more receptive, more open to taking that flyer on Kodai Senga.
I don't know where part of it because I don't do as many drafts. I don't know his current NEP. I would like to get Senga in the SP 4 or 5 range, which 60 to 75. I'm sensing he's probably higher than that. I may have to take him around, high 4, like around 50. I think he's probably close to SP 50. So it's not so much that I am anti Kodai Senga. I am anti the fact that his name is spelled 2 different ways, and I had it I had it with the U in my database and had to change it all, and that's so I spent 5 minutes taking the U out. Who was it? Someone just changed their name and then changed it back. Geez, thanks.
Oh, Clint Frazier.
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. But anyway,
my theory is that he changed it because of Jackson Mahomes.
Yeah, very well could. But anyway, as far as Senga, pitchers have translated better than hitters over the past couple of years. Especially, they strike out more than their translations say that you to expect when they come from overseas, from Japan and Korea. The ghost ball is real. The gyro ball was a myth, apparently. So I'm excited about Senga. I just don't know that I'm going to have him because all it takes is one in every room to want that toy more than me. And I think that'll be the case.
A guy that I added to my list and pushed up pretty highly is Jordan Walker. Now, I deferred to James, and James kind of threw some cold water on it, this topic when we were talking on XM earlier, saying there's a lot in St. Louis that his way, but we're talking about a top prospect in the game. So I'm thinking after guys like Newt Barr off the board, maybe like Harrison Bader, Riley Green. Hey, man, he could break camp with St. Louis. Maybe take the shot on Jordan Walker around pick 190. That's where I have him.
So this is where I need to get better for the rankings in my own drafting. You can't project him for a full season. You just can't. So on a algorithmic or formulaic rankings, he's going to fall. But what you just said is exactly right. At some point, do I take Jordan Walker or do I used to be able to say Cole Calhoun or David Peralta. Who's the boring? Do I take Austin Hayes? There you go.
What about Austin or Alex Verdugo?
Yeah. Do I take? Well, I think there's still a little bit of hope that Verdugo.
Yeah, I don't completely hate
a little
Verdugo.
Something. No, I don't.
He's in that boring range.
I think he is, but I think there's a little bit of hint of more than boring. I think Austin Hayes is kind of in that good but boring range. So yeah. So do I my rankings say take Austin Hayes, but I think if you're playing if you do it 10 times and if you take Walker, several of those times he's going to hit, but I mean, he's going to, be successful. He's going to hit. Therefore, he's a hit for your pick, and your team's going to be better than my Austin Hayes team. I think there'll be times where he doesn't, though. I'm not taking that chance in the third round, but yes, 190 is what 13th, 14th, 15th round, absolutely. So I don't get Hayes at that point. I can wait a few rounds and get someone a little bit lower on the food chain. So I had to find the best way to balance my algorithm pushed fueled rankings with logical common sense, what one would do in a room type rankings.
Well, that's the thing. We're always trying to find that sweet spot. It's tough.
Yeah, and it's never one size fits all because it depends on what I already have on my team. And I know it sounds like a cop out now, and just answer the question, Zola. But am I willing to take that chance Depends. Did I already take a chance on Riley Green? Then I'm less likely to take the chance on Jordan Walker. But you're right. And the thing is too, you're talking about outfield. I think he's only third base eligible, and it's
maybe on draft day. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, but the point being, I think that frees you up to take that chance, because I think you can find a backup plan at corner easier than outfield, and then you have the luxury of moving to the outfield if you need to.
Well, it's the thing where we're always fighting biases, and I'm kind of fighting a recency bias here, not even relating to Jordan Walker, but to passing on Julio Rodriguez everywhere last year, like not chasing that upside. And now Jordan Walker does not have Julio Rodriguez upside. And again, James kind of threw some cold water on him at this range, but there's a certain point in the draft where the margins between players really thin out. And I want to take some stabs at that.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned Rodriguez. And yeah, every few years, there's someone like that comes through. We're forgetting about the 8 other guys that you are correct to not draft at their elevated price. Mm-hmm. You want to call one of them Vlad early on? We can do that. We can do Wander Franco. We can do Jared Kelenic. So we can't get caught up in that. In that one, that
chasing the Julio,
and they're gonna get out there and they're gonna do victory laps. Whoever did it, and okay, but you didn't tell us the 8 times that you had to drop and do 20 push-ups because you got it wrong.
I remember in my main event last year, I was in the 5th round, and Julio was there, and I really wanted to take him, but I took Alek Manoah instead, and Alek Manoah was great. But that hesitation to it just felt like it was pushing it a little too hard at the time. Whereas maybe I should have kept an open mind and, gone chasing a little bit. Because now, again, Jordan Walker, not that kind of player, but still a lot of upside in a guy like that. For a team like St. Louis, I like the stab on Jordan Walker, probably more than some. We'll see if he actually makes the opening day roster. Then he could become a pretty hot commodity.
Yeah.
Jordan Walker was the last guy on my list, Todd. Any other risers or fallers that you got for the roundtable that come to mind?
Just some players that I went over in general. And I know the fact that I raised Acuna is not going to matter that much because he's still ranked really high. I brought Acuna up. I think you mentioned Lars Nootbaar. I think I brought Lars Nootbaar up a little bit. One thing I did, and I know these aren't the interesting people because they're first rounders and who cares, but in the first round table, I had Mookie Betts ranked 18th or 19th, and I'm like, you know what? I feel as though that's wrong, and before the next one, I'm going to raise him, so I'm going to just put him 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th now. Well, I've looked at Mookie Betts, and I've now readjusted to where I originally had him ranked, and that is, second round quality in a 15-teamer. The batting average, I'm just not as confident. And the other thing about the Dodgers is they're still going to be really good. But are they going to score as many runs as they did last season? And as the leadoff hitter, you get fewer plate appearances. You get fewer, I think, especially RBI because the back end of their order. So I think Betts is going to take some production hits and not be the kind of wheel draft choice that I thought. I think he's kind of into the second round anymore now. So I dropped Mookie Betts a little bit.
Well, I know Eric Halterman is working on that. So the second installment of the RotoWire Roundtable should be up. If not today, then later this weekend.
And I'll take I was late. It's not Eric. It's my fault. I got them in later than Eric asked for. But anyway.
All good, man. I'm just glad we're doing more of these. And, earlier in the year, I think the people like this little exercise. I also jumped up Jeremy Pena just a little. Oh, I'm such a mark. But that he's looking swole.
Oh, he was swole last year.
Yeah. I'm not saying I bumped him up
because
of that bicep pick, but I'm not saying I didn't.
Well, he was like he had worked out previous. That was part of why I was on him a little bit last year. Traded him in my 2 keeper leagues, so we'll see how much I live to regret it long term. But yeah, I didn't. I don't remember. I could have. Maybe next week or whenever I'll have a little bit better idea of who I wasn't thinking about guys I moved up or down. Those just happened to be the ones because they were near the top that I do know that I moved because I profiled outfielders a little later than I normally do this year. So some of these top outfielders I moved later on, later relative to the last round table.
Well, Jeremy Pena looks like he's preparing for a WrestleMania match or something. He's just out of control. But yeah, that'll do it for us today. Unless, Todd, you got anything else on your mind?
Real quick, I know we're a little over our hour. Potapalooza, friend Justin Mason, Fred with Fantasy Benefits, TGFBI, kicking off the TGFBI drafting. I will be moderating a sleeper starting pitching panel at 5:00 p.m. ET on Saturday, I believe. So check my feed, check Justin's feed. We're going to be talking for an hour about some sleeper starting pitchers. Justin does a great job with this pod, donating money, getting money along with the TGFBI. How's your TGFBI league? They were all tough.
Yeah, I think I have Bloomfield, but I didn't really look it over, to be honest, that much.
Yeah, I got Murphy. You got Ryan. I got Ray from HQ. I have a lot of tough players as well, and hopefully they're looking at us and going, "We got Link, we got Zola," so it all evens out.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe somebody has 3 league titles already, but
no.
So the first to 3 is still a race, huh?
The first to 2? Oh, league titles.
Yeah, league titles.
Oh,
I think maybe, I don't know. I want to be the first to 3, but I think somebody might have.
Yeah.
No, several people have 2. But that's going to do it for us. Really great stuff, Todd. Thank you all for being with us. We are sponsored by Fantrax and Underdog Fantasy. We'll be back with you next week. Clay and Todd on the Friday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.